Hey, it's Dan from Plant to Health. Why are most people actually consuming way too much fat, and why you should be eating a low-fat diet too? Coming up next. The typical Western diet actually is a pretty high-fat diet, and we don't even realize it. Most of us are consuming way too much fat as a percentage of the calories we eat daily. What do I mean by that? The average Western diet includes around 30% fat, and while a low-fat diet will typically be somewhere between 5 to 15% fat. Now, this is so ingrained that even clinical trials that were testing low-fat diets actually used a diet that contained about 25% fat, which is pretty much about the same as the standard fatty Western diet. Now, 25 or 30% is pretty common, but if you're eating more towards the junky side, you'll actually get up to even 40% fat. A lot of us I was also eating the standard Western diet. We love our junk food. Come on, don't deny it. I know you love that greasy junk food too. I know I used to, and I just weaned myself off it, but it's worth it, trust me. So you might look at this and say, so what do you care, Dan? So what if I'm eating 30% fat? Everyone's eating that. Well, if you want to get the same result as everyone, the same health result and weight results as everyone, then just eat like everyone, sure. But eating that kind of high-fat diet leads to not only weight gain and difficulty maintaining a normal weight, but also increases your chance of a multitude of diseases, including different kinds of cancers, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, and other issues. The way that we can see that this is actually significant is that the clinical trials that were conducted testing the effectiveness of a plant-based diet, the ones that were impressive and yielded some serious results, used a low-fat vegan diet. So whether you're talking about diabetes patients, heart disease, or even weight loss, the diet of choice has always been a low-fat, whole food, plant-based vegan diet, which is why I stick to this. See, the reason I'm pushing this diet on you is not because, for the heck of it, and, I've fallen in love with this, and this is what I'm preaching to everyone else. No, the thing is, the evidence, the trials, the clinical data shows that the healthiest diet available is a low-fat, whole food, plant-based vegan diet. And you can see that in the studies, the clinical trials that were conducted by such great doctors such as Dr. Neil Bernard, Dr. Dean Ornish, Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn, Dr. John McDougall, and many others. Another thing is, when the longest lived populations were studied, specifically I'm talking about a project many of you may have heard of, Dan Buettner's The Blue Zones, one of those famous places was Okinawa in Japan. And in Okinawa, the diet was studied meticulously. We're talking about maybe 30, 40, 50 years ago, not today, because today everything has been westernized and everything has changed and fast food has taken over. But back then, they were eating a very low-fat diet. I think it was about 7%, I'll check. But in any case, the diet that we're eating consisted mostly of sweet potatoes and vegetables and very, very low fat, and they had long, active lives. They were physically active and mentally sharp up until their 90s and 100s, and that is one of the most famous populations to live like that. Now you might say, hey, but they're Japanese, they're probably eating fish. And the answer to that is, and I'm saying this as a vegan, ethical vegan, the answer to that is yes, they were eating minute, and by minute I mean minuscule, very small quantities of fish. You might say, okay, and they lived very long lives, so maybe I could, eat very small quantities of animal products and get away with it. The question is, of course, which animal products, because fish tend to be less harmful. Mind that I'm not saying healthy for you, but less harmful than other animal products. Could you get away with it? I think maybe you could back then. Today, the fish of the world, because of the state of the oceans, The fish are highly contaminated. All of them contain microplastic and other contaminants, and they are much less healthy than they used to be. Even if they had any health benefits or were less harmful in the past, I believe that today you'll find that they're more harmful than they used to be 50 years ago when this was taken. So can you get away with it? Maybe, but should you do it? No, you shouldn't, because there's also the animals that suffer. It's been shown in scientific research that fish do feel pain, so we're not going to ignore that. We're not just going to treat them like, a vegetable, because they're not. They're sentient beings, and we don't want to hurt them. And the environmental price of fishing is catastrophic. If you haven't, I highly recommend that you check out Seaspiracy. It's available for free on Netflix. Now, if you're interested in keeping your weight down and maintaining normal body weight, well, eating a low-fat, whole food plant-based diet makes it very easy for your body to maintain that normal, healthy, lower body weight, while eating a higher fat diet makes it much harder. That's why people who are eating the standard diet have to go to all sorts of extreme solutions, restrictions, calorie counting, portion measuring, and all that sort of thing, which you do not need to do when eating this kind of diet, the whole food plant-based diet. And it's much easier to maintain your weight while you're eating like this, because you're not providing your body a lot of fat, and carbohydrates are the body's fuel of choice, and it will use it, burn it up, and it will not store a lot of fat because you're not providing it a lot of fat. What does eating the low-fat, whole food plant-based diet do for you? It also protects you. It's very protective. Because you're eating a low-fat vegan diet, you have the highest available protection clinically known to us against a variety of cancers that are diet-related, heart disease, and all sorts of cardiovascular disease, and type 2 diabetes, as well as a host of other diseases that are related to diet, which are beyond the scope of this video, and I don't want to make it too long. When you're eating low fat like this, and I mean the real low fat, the healthy kind, which is what I advocate, you are going to feel much more energetic. You're going to be more vital. You're going to feel lighter, and you'll have more energy during the day. The reason is that eating fatty foods and having a higher fat content in your diet actually makes you lethargic. It slows down. This is something that you can see under a microscope. It slows down your blood flow. And slower blood flow means that the oxygen is not getting as quickly to your cells. The carbon dioxide is not being taken away from your cells, and the energy is reaching your cells at a slower rate. Basically, you're slowing down the entire cardiovascular system when you eat fatty foods. This is an effect that lasts for 4 or 5 hours after each fatty meal. So you can imagine that people eating a standard Western diet are basically living in a constant state of hindered or slower blood flow, and that affects their energy levels and vitality throughout the entire day. Basically how you feel. You just feel better, you feel lighter, you feel more energized when you're eating low fat. So all the data that we have shows that eating a low fat, whole food plant-based diet is the best way to maximize your longevity, and that's all what I'm about, that's my jam. I want to help you guys maximize your longevity and get you your best health results. And the way to do that, the key to getting there, is nutrition. You start the process by shifting to a low-fat, whole food, plant-based diet. You eat whole plants, vegetables, fruits, legumes, whole grains, and you revolutionize, you change your body. It changes your body in a multitude of ways, through your microbiome, through epigenetics. The expression of genes changes, like Elizabeth Blackburn showed in her study. And remember, the more fat you eat, the more your body is going to tend to store it as body fat, because the body is a biochemically effective machine, and it aspires to always do the simplest, most energy-conserving thing it can do. And when you give it a sufficient amount of energy, meaning you're eating in a caloric surplus, which is what most of us are doing in the Western world, let's face it. When you're eating in a caloric surplus, you have enough carbohydrates, meaning glucose for the body to burn, that's its fuel, and you're giving it some fat. So the normal thing for the body to do would be to take those fatty acids and store them as adipose tissue within your fat stores, which makes it easier to gain weight and harder to lose weight. Now, some people are going to ask me, well, what about those healthy fats? You know, I've heard that fat is essential for you. What about those omega-3 fatty acids? What about you need to have a little olive oil in your diet or whatnot? Now, most of that information, as far as the best scientific knowledge shows us, is a myth. If you look at the data, first of all, olive oil is definitely, there's no way to show that it is essential to human health. It is, in fact, a very highly processed food, and it's harmful for you in many ways. So I would recommend avoiding any kind of oils in your diet. No oils in the diet, please. Secondly, in terms of healthy fats, you need to remember that there is some fat in any kind of natural food. So you can't eat a non-fat diet. There is no way for you to be eating a normal diet that consists of actual natural food and not consume fat. But a small amount of fat, but fat in vegetables. There's fat in grains. There's fat in legumes. And you'll find that there's no way for you to not consume fat at all. What you're doing is you're lowering your consumption of fat. That is how you reach those percentages of between 5 and 15% fat, which is what actually constitutes a low-fat diet. However, if you're concerned about omega-3 fatty acids, you can always take a tablespoon of flaxseed per day, ground flaxseed, which is the best kind of fat that exists. You're welcome to have 1 or 2 tablespoons of ground flax seeds in your diet if you're concerned about that, and that gives you coverage. Although I can tell you for a fact that those Okinawans, for example, were not eating flax. And you might say they were eating fish, they were eating tiny amounts of fish. So the amount of omega-3 fatty acids in those was minuscule, if at all. The thing is that we're focusing way too much on adding a lot of supplements and fats into the diet. That's not the way to go. The way to go is to lower the omega-6 fats, which is the common form of fats that found everywhere that are ubiquitous in our diet, and we should be lowering those instead of adding other fats to compensate for it. That is one of the pitfalls of our thinking in the modern world. Let's add a pill to that. Let's add a supplement to that instead of eating whole natural foods and letting the body do its job. Now, those Okinawans were not taking supplements. They were not taking omega-3s. They were not taking fish oils. They were not taking algae oils. They were not taking anything, and they were healthy. Did they have adequate omega-3 levels? I don't know. Did their bodies have a problem living full, healthy, active lives? No, they're living much better and longer than most of us here in the Western world. So I think that speaks for itself. And I think that we have this huge, unsubstantiated fear of nutritional deficiencies. We're actually living in an age of nutritional overconsumption. We can't solve these things with a pill. We're looking at it the wrong way. We should be eating whole plant foods and consuming a low-fat diet, which all the evidence available to us shows is the way to live longer, healthier, to avoid lots of different kinds of diseases, and to actually achieve our greatest potential physically and also in terms of athletic performance. So, eat whole plant foods. You only stand to lose with diabetes, weight, cardiovascular disease. I'll see you next time.